to stop being so blind. Ironic, right? I can see that there are two types of people in this room today. Those of you who believe I'm an inspiration, and those of you who pity me. This may come as a surprise to you, but you're both wrong. My name is Kenia Flores, and I'm a senior here at Furman. I'm majoring in politics and international affairs, and if you ask me, I tell you it's the greatest department on campus. I have a pretty ordinary family. I have a younger brother named Andy, and we have a sweet dog named Bruno. Today, I want to share a little bit of my story with you. Let's talk a little bit about political correctness for people with disabilities. I'm not differently abled, I'm not someone with special needs, I'm not handicapped, and I'm most certainly not someone with an exceptionality, whatever that means. Would it be okay if I asked you to stop the political correctness and let's call it what it is, a disability? I am blind, but I cannot begin to tell you how well I see. I envision living in a world where I see people with disabilities in the positions that you are in. But you know, that cannot happen unless you are willing to stop being so blind to our capabilities. In our time together, I'm going to ask that you simply hear me out. First, I want people with disabilities given opportunity. Would you believe me if I told you that blind people have a 70% unemployment rate? 70%. To put that in perspective, can you imagine if that were the case for people without disabilities? 70% of them being unemployed? In America, we freak out if the unemployment rate is above 5%. Let me tell you a story and you'll understand why that is. I vividly remember the first time I visited Washington, D.C. I was a young, impressionable senior in high school at the time, and I was there with the National Federation of the Blind of North Carolina meeting with members of Congress regarding our legislative priorities. My love for DC never dwindled, and I had the opportunity to return during my sophomore year here at Furman. I participated in a study away program with my advisor, Dr. Fleming. I interned for the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which enforces anti-discrimination laws in the workplace. As an intern, I was tasked with meeting with potential charging parties and completing their charges of discrimination. I then returned home to Charlotte, where I interned for a United States Senator in his district office. I share this with you because a few months later, I had the opportunity to return to DC for an internship position. However, my experience was drastically different. As you may know, positions during the summer months are most competitive given that most students are out of school. After a few applications, I received an interview offer from a polling and research firm. At first glance, I was absolutely thrilled. The company seemed to be a perfect fit. Our phone interview began like most others with the awkward small talk we all know too well. I expected them to transition to typical interview questions, like, what are your strengths and weaknesses? How do I address conflict? And my favorite, tell me about yourself. Except that was not the case. Instead, they asked me whether I could sit in a chair, whether I could use email, and finally, whether I could use a phone. Y'all, please keep in mind this interview took place over the phone. I was frustrated that they were making these assumptions simply because I disclosed my disability on my resume. I didn't think it was fair. Not once did they ask about my qualifications or lack thereof regarding the internship position. Instead, they chose to ask me illegal and invasive questions. In theory, I knew what to do. I had interned for the EEOC, for goodness sakes. But I had not been prepared to face such an interesting situation. I was really caught off guard by all of their questions. All I could do was answer them. Those questions put me in a very uncomfortable position. Those questions caused me to question my self-worth and wrestle with feelings of self-doubts in the weeks after. It wasn't fair. This is why I want people with disabilities given opportunity. I hope now you can see the silly questions and lack of opportunity contribute to the 70% unemployment rate. Second, I want people with disabilities to be included. This year, I began working at the Malone Center for Career Engagement. I think inclusion should be the norm and not the exception. My supervisor, Kate, invited the Student Career Ambassador team to her apartment for dinner last semester as a way of thanking us for our hard work. One day, I excitedly told her that the National Federation of the Blind had partnered with Mattel to create Uno Braille cards. Unbeknownst to me, Kate had purchased Uno Braille for us to play after dinner. We sat around laughing. The game got really intense, y'all. Around the dinner table, laughing as we played a completely accessible game right out of the box. A rare occurrence for those of us with disabilities. As if that weren't enough, Kate wrote all of us a sweet letter, and she handed mine to me in Braille. I know that doesn't sound like a big deal, but it was. Oftentimes, people make accommodations for people with disabilities out of obligation. Kate is inclusive because she wants to be, not because she feels obligated to. Kate and I refuse to allow accessibility to be an afterthought, and we encourage you to do the same. Most importantly, I want you to see that blind people are just like you. We're not special, we're not extraordinary, we're just normal. I cannot tell you how often people approach me in public and ruin my perfectly good day by asking if they can pray for my healing. I believe in the power of prayer, but I don't believe I need to be healed. As far as I'm concerned, I'm doing pretty okay, for a senior who's trying to figure out her life. So it really bothers me when people do that simply because I would consider myself a very open person, and I don't want people to take this as an attack, but I would much rather have people come up to me and ask me, how do you do X, Y, or Z, rather than simply assuming. So, for example, this is quite a common occurrence. If you see me at the grocery store and your child asks you why I'm walking with a long white cane, tell them. Tell them it is a tool that allows me to be independent. Don't shy away from the conversation. The reason disabilities are such a taboo topic is because we're not willing to engage in them. So the next time you're out, try to talk to someone with a disability. If they don't want to talk to you, they will let you know. I'm the first blind person in my family, so I never had a blind role model growing up until I joined the National Federation of the Blind. I share this with you because now I serve as second vice president of the National Association of Blind Students. I get to travel the country and mentor blind students multiple times a year. It's very enriching for me, and I get to help people who were once where I was, a lost student who didn't know what life looked like with a disability. I want the blind teenager to know that she too can attend an institution like Furman. She too can intern on Capitol Hill. She is employable. She is normal, and she will find friends who accept her for who she is and doesn't have to explain anything to them. Thank you.